Yeah, in this section we would focus on the lookup functions, right? Again, so if I just have to write a few queries here, couple of things which I would be interested here is use the same first question of if and execute using lookups. It is nothing but greater than 3000, excellent. That query is there, right? So use that same query, try to execute it using lookups. We'll try to see that there will be a problem with the if in some of these cases. So how lookups can replace if is one aspect which we'll look at there. Then convert the month numbers into text. This also we'll try to do using lookups. Just as a practice, I'll give 2 or 3 areas to look at. Okay, create an application where the user enters a date and the system should retrieve the prices and some other information pertaining to that date. So I want to create one application where please enter the date. For that date, all the values are retrieved, just like your exam marks. Please enter your all ticket number. You enter that, and corresponding to that, a lot of values, whatever the marks and all corresponding, are displayed on the screen. A similar kind of application I am trying to create using Vlookups or lookups. So these are the 3 applications which I am more interested in looking at. And once we get a hold on these 3, we'll get a very decent hold in the usage of the lookup functions, right? So we'll first start off with the second part. Convert the month numbers. We have already computed the month numbers. We want to convert them into text as Jan to December, right? Now, if at all I want to address the first question, right? Marks greater, the values greater than, the price greater than 3000. Excellent. That way, here we have only 4 categories. Excellent, good, okay, bad. But imagine there can be 20 such categories also. Very excellent, whatever. You can put all kinds of categorizations, and they may come out to 20 different categories with 100 difference between each of the categories. Or probably group 1, group 2, group 3, group 20. Because it's just a categorization, right? Which means if there are around 20 groups, you have to write 19 ifs. Even if there are 4 groups, we have written 3 ifs, right? Because if will evaluate either to a true or a false. So to address that, we have to write 19 ifs. That will make the formula very cumbersome. And probably in 2003 version, only 7 ifs were supported. If within an if, because of the time that if typically takes for execution. I mean, again, going with the technical aspect of that, the searching mechanism which if typically follows, in technical terms, it's a kind of a binary search mechanism, which actually takes more time, especially if the data is more and if the logics are more in number. So that's where up to 2003, they have even restricted the number of ifs. But even after 2007 also, in 2007 and later also, though there is not much of a restriction on the number of ifs, but again it is advised that wherever you can use some other alternative models, alternative formulas, better we can use them rather than going with a if. The reason again, the time and costliness in the operation, especially when we are looking at more and more dynamic applications where web-based connectivities, lot of things do matter. The loading time, lot of things do matter, especially on high voluminous data, not for our kind of data. But this is just a practice, and at the same time, we'll use the usage of two different tools. And on other side, even from our point of view, the formula becomes very cluttered. If at all 20 ifs are there, right, few lines of formula, and any editing is going to make things very cumbersome. So from that point also, it is advised that especially where the categorization is merely a category representation, like here, excellent, good, it's a category representation. You are giving some alias name to the category. If at all the price is greater than 3000, all those records give a name called excellent. Otherwise, give them okay, give them good. It's just an aliasing you are giving to those records. Wherever such a kind of scenario is there, you can very well replace if with lookups. In scenarios where only a pure aliasing is happening, you can very well replace the if with a lookup. But in some cases, it's just not aliasing. You may have to do some calculations based on a criteria. Just as a small example, let's say I'll talk about instead of trades, let me talk about the sales in lakhs or something, thousands or lakhs. Let's say if I put a query saying, if my requirement is, if the sales is greater than 1 million, the commission, let it be computed as 12% of the sales. Sales lying between 500,000 to 1 million, 7-8% of the sales. There it's just not aliasing. There also it's if sales is greater than 1 million, do this, or greater than 500,000, do this, greater than 200,000, do this. Again the same logic. But there it's simply not aliasing. I'm actually doing some calculation. Calculate the sales commission for that person as 12% of the total sales. So I am not just putting excellent, good as a constant, but I am doing some kind of calculation and putting a value. In those cases, Excel suggests to go with an if mandatorily, wherever it's just not aliasing, but you are doing some computing based on the condition being evaluated to true or false. But if it is simply aliasing, just giving the name, better go with the lookups. So again, the lookups wise, there are two formulas as far as Excel goes: a horizontal lookup, which is an H lookup, and a vertical lookup, which is a V lookup. And both are one and the same, except for a couple of small differences. When we use the word lookup, even as an English word, it is nothing but a search, right? So I am looking up for something somewhere. I am searching for something somewhere, and if I really find it there, I am pulling out something else and displaying it. Just like your Google search. You want to search for a word in Google databases. If at all the search is successful, something has to be displayed on your screen. Same way here, or probably your file search in your system. In your system, you do a file search. You search for a particular file name. in the whole of the system, or only C drive or only D drive kind of things you will specify. And based on the success of the search, it will have to display. Even the lookup is exactly the same thing. So you will have to search for something in something. So that in something, right, just like the way you specify C drive, D drive, you have to specify the location where that search needs to happen. So that is what I typically call as my master file or master sheet or master location. The master location is the location where I want to search for what I want. So that is like where to search, just like C drive, D drive kind of thing. So I want to search for a particular file. So here I want to search for a particular text or particular value in C drive or D drive. So in a particular location. If at all the match is successful, retrieve a list or something as per my system search. Here retrieve some other value corresponding to that search. So I have to create my search location where to search, which is my master sheet, in such a way that for all the values which I want to search for, I want to have the corresponding values that need to be picked up and displayed. Let's say I want to convert month number into month text, right? I want to search out for these numbers for each date, whatever the numbers were there in my calculation. I want to search out each number in a master location. So I'll create a master location which will be having 1 to 12 as some values and their corresponding text. 1 means Jan, 2 means February. Like that I'll have a corresponding matching thing. That location I'll call as a search location. Where to search. Now in that search location, Excel does not search the whole of the search location. Again, as a default property of Excel's lookups, it will not search the entire search location. It will only search either the first column of that location or the first row of that location, not the whole. If it is a 10 row and 10 column kind of a master you have created, it will not search all the 100 elements. It will either search the first column, the first 10 in the column, or it will search the first row of your selection. This is what you said is your master. It need not be from the first row of the sheet or first column of the sheet. It can be from anywhere. But from what you have specified as the location, in that either the first row or the first column are taken. It will search for your value only in that location. And in case the match is successful, it can display the values from your other column or from your other rows. We'll look at that. So in this case, first we'll look at converting the month number into month text. So I'll use a new sheet. I'll rename that sheet and call it as a master. Right? Not any name is fine. Now I'll need to have 1, 2 for these 12. For these 12, I'll create the corresponding names. January, February, something like this. I'll create, right? January, February to December. Or at some places, let's say I may want to use even the abbreviations. Jan, Feb, the smaller words. So let's say even, let me put it. So basically nothing but I have created it as a 12 row 3 column kind of a location. This location is what I'll call as my search location, way to search. So this location, the Excel will start searching for whatever value you are saying, either in the first column of this location, which means it will search in this area, or in the first row of the location, this area. If you have given the formula as Vlookup, vertical lookup, it will search here. HLookup, it will search here. So it's only your master table data, how you are presenting. Based on that, you will have to use a Vlookup or a HLookup formula. Completely based on, probably if you had tilted this entire thing, saying 1 to 12 in the first row, January, February in the next row, Jan, Feb in the next row, then I would have used HLookup. Now, the way we are trying to execute this is, for each, I'll look up for each number. Let's say there are 1400 such numbers in the month. For each one, for this 6, I will look up for this 6 using Vlookup in this location, which means 6 is searched for in the first column of this location. So it is found here. If there is a match that has occurred, I can give instruction to the system to pull out either the second column or the third column of that corresponding to that match. So if I give it as second column, it will pull out June. If I give it as third column, it will pull out as JUN and display it to me, which means the numbers are converted into text. Now let's try to apply it. Yeah, so as a good practice again, any master location, again that will give us another input also. Any master that we have created, it is better to give an alias name to that master, so that I can, instead of every time coming to this location and doing a selection like this of the master, it's better I give one alias name and reuse that name any number of times wherever required. Because as we move along, we may have to create, create pivot tables, we may have to use charts, lot of stuff, and for all of them we may want to use the same master. So if that's the case, it's always better to use the same alias name to create that, for a specific location. So that alias name I can very well create by selecting this location, this area, get into the formulas tab. There is a section called define names. Under this define names, there is a define name kind of a piece. Get into the define name and you give a name, month conversion something, which is a more easy to understand or use kind of a name, and I simply do an OK. So the alias name for this is month conversion. Now see, the better part of this is, even if I am there in this sheet, if I want to go to that, all my alias names are displayed here. You see here there is a location where there is a drop down. All that aliases are displayed there. You select your alias, it directly takes you to that location and even highlights that location. Okay, so the thing is, or another easier way to get an advantage of that alias is, if we simply try to do equal to and try to use that name. Just using it may not have many meaning, but within some formulas I can use it. So I can say equal to month, I'll get my name here, just like any formula. I can use my alias name as simple as any formula. So it is displayed to me everywhere. So those are a couple of advantages I can derive once I create an alias. Okay, now that alias is there for me, this location is there as an alias. Now let me try using the month conversion. Let's say here itself I'll create one column so that corresponding to the month number I'll display a month text. Probably I'll call this as month text. So here I'll start looking up equal to, because my data, master data, is in the form of a column, because these numbers, whatever I want to search for, 6, 7 and all, they are there in the form of a column. So I'll use Vlookup, not HLOOKUP. So Vlookup, right? I'll use Vlookup. Now the 4 inputs which I give, the lookup value, what to search. Okay, search for this number. For each one I have to convert it into text. So I'll say search for this number called 6 in where? The location. Instead of going to the sheet again and selecting it, I can very well write the name, month conversion, the alias name which I have given. Now the column index number is, in case there is a match, if 6 is found in that first column, because we are using Vlookup, the search will happen only in the first column of that data. One important aspect, this is where a lot of people make mistake in the usage of Vlookup. It will not search in the second column at all. Even if your data is present in the second column, it will not search and it will give you an error. So you have to choose your master in such a way that whatever you are searching for should be there as a part of the first column of that master only. Right? If it is there in the second column, probably change the master location from that column till the last, not the previous columns. Right? And the column index number is of that master. In case there is a match, which column needs to be retrieved? Second column, third column. Second column means June, June. Third column means Jun, because each column of that master, not of the sheet, of that location. So the moment I say this is 2, right, it will pull out the full name, June or something. And the last one says, should the match be exact or approximate? Should the search be exact or approximate? If it is exact, obviously if 6 is not found in that list, it will give me as error, not available. NA kind of an error is what it will show. But if I give it as an approximate match, in some cases that is also required. We have taken one example for that. Right? If I take it as an approximate match, let's say if 6 is not found, it will try to search for a number closest to 6. Probably, again, a small difference there, closest to 6, but on the lower side. So even if 5 and 7 both are there in the master, it will not display July, it will display May. Because let's say June, 6 June is not there in the total data itself. Somewhere we omitted in the master. 6 is not there. When I give an exact match, because 6 is not there, it will give me an error outright. Not available kind of an error. But if I give it as an approximate match, because 6 is not present, it will search for a value lesser than 6 but closest to it. Closest not only on the lower side, not on the higher side. Closest on the lower side, it will pull out that, it will take that as the record and pull out the values corresponding to that record, which means it may display May to me. So depending on my business rule, I'll have to use either as an exact match or the approximate match. And as another word of caution, if I am using exact match, the order of data of my master table is of no importance, because it will search only for the exact word to word. If that word is occurred, it will display the value. If it is not occurred, it will give me an error. So the data need not be ordered in any fashion. Master data, probably I need not have 1 to 12. I can have it as 4, 1, 7, 3, 12, whatever it is. In whatever fashion, I can have my master. Whereas when I use approximate match, the data has to be in the ascending order itself, which means it has to be in 1 to 12 itself. Otherwise, the algorithm which Excel is using to pull out the approximate, as I said, it will pull out the one lower to it but on the closest side, closest to it but on the lower side. That algorithm it is executing in the serial order fashion. So as long as the values are lesser than it, it will look out for the next element. The moment the sign changes from lesser to greater, that is where it stops its search. It will not look out for the whole data. That's where your data has to be in the ascending order itself when you are using an approximate match. For exact match, no issues. But the way it is executing that approximate match algorithm is, it will keep searching right from the first element. The moment, as long as those elements are lesser than the value you are searching for, it continues. The moment the sign changes from lesser to greater, it stops the search there. It will not go down any more further. And corresponding to the last lesser than value, it pulls out and displays to us. So because of that reason, we always require the data to be in the ascending order if I am going with an approximate match. But with an exact match, no issues. I can have it in whatever order. And the way I have to represent the exact versus approximate match is, exact match is represented with a 0 and approximate with a 1. Right? Or even if I omit it, it is an approximate match itself. The default is approximate match, but I have to explicitly give a 0 if I want to go with an exact match. Okay, now let me try executing it. Here it gives me as June, because I am going with an exact. All these are Junes, then Julys, then August. That's how it has written. And probably in this formula itself, if I change this from 2 to 3, third column of that master, it will display only the 3 characters. So depending on how because wherever the match is occurring, corresponding to that match, the value in that parallel column is what it will pull and display to us. Right? This is how a lookup works. Anything that I want to search for and convert it into something else. So I want to, it's like find and replace in a more better sense. Wherever I find 6, write June corresponding to it. So that way, it could be a value to value conversion. Like 6 means June, 7 means July. Value to value conversion. Value to value aliasing. Or a group to value aliasing. Like 3000 plus or 2500 to 3000. It's not one value to one value kind of a mapping, but it's a group of values to one single value mapping. So in these two cases, I can use lookup, especially when I have a value to value map or a group to value map. Value to value map, better to go with exact match. But group to value map, better to go with an approximate match. We'll take up that example of group to value mapping, which is that that 4 scenarios, 3000 plus 2500 to 3000 kind of scenario. All right. So okay. So let's say if I want to execute this query, right, which is the same as this. So if I have to write a master for this time we'll try using HLOOKUP, right? So logically what is that we'll write? 3000 plus, right, 2500 to 3000, 2000 to 2500, and let's say less than 2000. I mean, just for our understanding, I am writing first. The actual format, I'll write it slightly later. Then here I'll write it as excellent, good, okay, bad. So let's say this part is our data table, is our table, our master. But one thing is, here, if I give it as my own choice, these kind of things, the ranges, Excel cannot look up for those kind of ranges. So for that it has given a process. Enter those in such a way that you take the lower boundary of all these ranges. Not the range in this kind of a definition. Take only the lower boundary of all these ranges. So when I say less than 2000, lower boundary is 0. 0 to 2000. Here it is 2000, here it is 25, here it is 3000. Take only the lower boundaries of all the ranges and let all these lower boundaries be in the ascending order. See, one way is, here I want to look up for the price, the closing price in this master table. Correct? This master table is only having 4 ranges because it's a range to value lookup. And obviously I cannot maintain all the possible values and conversion factor for all. Even if I maintain all integers, there are so many decimals also. So literally it is not possible to list down all to create a master. So I better go with a range. For this range, this is the conversion and so on. So primarily there are 4 ranges for us like this. But the 4, so in wherever it's a range to a value lookup or range to value conversion, range conversion to an alias, it's better to go with an approximate match. The reason why I am going with an approximate is, if at all I have 2820.25 as the value which I have to search, obviously I don't find it in the master. It will give me as error. But it has to give me some value, either good or okay or bad, even for 2820.25. So that way I cannot go with an exact match. So approximate is much better. But as part of approximate, first thing is I need to have the data in the ascending order. Master in the ascending order. And if at all there is a range, it suggests use only the lower bounds of the range, not the upper side. So if I use the lower bounds of the range, this thing gets transformed into 0 in the ascending order also. 2000, which is the range 2000 to 2500. 25, the range is 25 to above 3000. And the other range is 3000. 3000 plus. All the lower bounds are these ones. So 0 to 2000 it is bad. 2000 to 2500 is okay. Here it is good. And 3000 to anything other side, it is excellent. This is the format of presentation of my master table. In case I want better results corresponding to my lookups. especially when I am using it as an approximate match criteria. So what I'll do is this location, I'll give one more alias name. Right, I'll give one more alias name to this location, probably calling it as stock price. Some name, hardly matters. Something which we can relate to. I'll call it as stock price. Okay. Now again I'll come back. So based on the price, I have to convert it. So somewhere, let's say here, let me put one more column. So I'll say price performance. So here, because my master data is in a horizontal form, I'll use HLOOKUP. I'll use HLOOKUP. Lookup value here is search for the price. So this is the price I would like to search. The table array for me is that table which we have given as an alias also to it. Let's say the stock price. I'll search for this. Wherever the match occurs, I'll ask it to pull the second row of that. The first is the data. The second row is actually the good, bad kind of thing. So I'll write it as 2. Here, this is not an exact match. If I write as an exact match 0, obviously this 2824.9 is not there in that master. It will give me any error. Let's try that. If I write a 0 here, it will give me an any error. It will say because it is not found. The master does not contain 2824. So rather than that, I'll edit it saying I'll put this equal to 1, which is an approximate. So I'll show you the way it searches. So this time it gives me good. The way it has arrived at is, okay, 2824.9. In the master, it starts searching with this. Okay, is this number greater than 2824.9? Yes. So moves to the next element. Is this still greater than 2824? Yes. Is it still greater than 2824? Yes. Right? Is 2824 still greater than all these? So it is coming out with the same decision. Yes. Is 2824 still greater than this? No. So the condition is the sign is getting changed from yes to no. The place where it is changing the sign, before that, the last entry of that, it will pull out the value corresponding to it and display, which is exactly the same logic which we have got through our if statement also. So that logic can be executed only when my data is in the ascending order. So that's the reason why it suggests that my data of the master table should be in the ascending order, especially for probably if you just want that, let me change this data. Right, before I change it, let me drag this also so that you will see across. Right, this will be exactly same as what you got through your if statement also. But just to observe the scenario, let me change this data to some format. Just the reverse. 3000, 25, 2000 and 0. Just putting it in the descending order. Just observe the values now. Forget about this. Let them be anything because it will give me the error directly. You see, everyone is mentioned as excellent, first of all. So it's a complete wrong categorization of the values which we are getting. And lot of NS, especially where the value is greater than 3000, we are directly getting it as NA itself. So it creates all kinds of problems because the way it is executing the logic is in a serial order fashion. So that's where it is always advised, especially when I am using an approximate match. This is always advised that my master is in the ascending order of the values itself. Now again these are fully modified as per their values, right? So the VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP can very well be used to convert one value or search for one value, and corresponding to that search pull out another value and display on the screen. That is the place where I can use these VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs, and I can create some master files or master sheet from where the values can be pulled out, and that master sheet can have some alias names just like the way we have created, so that the formula does not go complicated. And now you see, you try to compare this formula, which is very small, versus the if formula which we have written. Both are meaning one and the same. Here the formula is long, and assume that there are 10 categories. This if will keep on expanding, but lookup will not change anything from here. Only your data can go slightly more. Instead of 4 columns, you may have 10 columns in your data, but the formula will still be a very simpler formula. Only this much. But the effect is exactly the same using the if as well as VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. V or H, whatever it is. That is purely depending on how the master is structured. Correct? Yeah, the application part will take it as one more piece, because there we'll integrate a few more elements. Right? So the application part I'll just